Thanks,
Virginia
Nicole.
Crosbie.
I've got two quick questions, Nicole. Thank you for coming in. You mentioned working with charities. My question is one of collaboration. There's, in terms of working with the third sector, I've got Gorwel, which is a great domestic abuse charity on Ynys Môn in my constituency, and they've been very helpful, actually giving me lots of background information and very supportive in the community. So how do you see yourself working with the third sector and make sure that, as a commissioner, making sure that they have a voice?
I see it in a lot of different ways. Some of, particularly because I believe that they are, they are the closest link to the voice of the survivor. So obviously I want to have and be influenced directly by people who are subject to domestic abuse, but those services have such a breadth of understanding that it almost always, my first question is, well, what does the frontline service think about this particular thing? Because I will know that they'll have spotted every advantage, every problem, and anything. So I would hope that the way I would work with them is quite close. I have been working very closely with them in the past months. I have a call every Monday, for example, with quite a few of our national helplines and services that represent the sector. I think locally, I would hope that and I probably should say the obvious, I think the idea of the Domestic Abuse Commissioner's Office, not me personally, but the idea of it, will have a massive impact, because it will allow me to go to the local level and help elevate those voices, help illustrate more clearly the breadth of funding that needs to go to those services for them to do what they need to do, so that they are not constantly chasing funding deadlines, shortfalls in their budgets, all of those kinds of things. But also just making sure that they are rightfully where they need to be in strategic conversations at the local level, because that's deteriorated quite a bit over time, where you have charities where, because they're commissioned by the local authority, they're in a disadvantage sometimes when there's challenging discussions to be had, because on one hand they're asking for funding, on the other they're trying to be a meaningful strategic partner in the whole of the response for an area. So I would like to really make sure that I have an expectation in areas that would elevate that voice. So I'd say those would be my priorities.
Thank you. And then just a quick question. And how would you see your role working with the Welsh government advisors and with the other commissioners, so the victims commissioners and the children commissioners?
Yeah, again, if anything, COVID maybe has accelerated kind of my picture of how I would do that. So I speak to the Children's Commissioner often, particularly the Victims Commissioner, several times a week. I speak to the Welsh National Advisors usually once a week, but possibly once every 2 weeks. So we have pretty close working relationships, because there's such a lot of join up about, in recent weeks, the response to COVID, but in general, the breadth of whatever is being implemented or thought about or should be happening. They're pretty close working relationships, and I will develop a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with all of those offices in due course.